This is the LFC Daytrippers red reaction to the full time of Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 1. I'm the host, Keith, and I'm joined tonight, delighted to be joined tonight by Smith.
Good evening, but absolutely buzzing. 3 points is 3 points, loving it.
I like that. And I'm also joined by Paul Nolan. Paul, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm actually pissed off, but that's just me. So
I like it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm in the a bit in between the two years. We're going to go through the game, lads. We're going to go through some of the performances.
A rose in between two thorns, eh, Keith?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So some might say, not many now, but some. But anyway, lads, before we do get started, right? Because I think there's going to be a few players that are going to get laid into after that performance. I'll start with you, Pete. A win is a win is a win is a win is a win. And 3 points was the most important thing today, wasn't it, out of that game?
Huge. We're at the stage of the season where we can't look at performances. Well, let's be honest, there's none. The two goal scorers absolutely stank the place out. But we're not looking at performances now. We're looking at how do we get across the line. The only thing I'll say is if I'm a top player, I said this to you earlier, if I'm a top goal scorer, I'm not going to mention any names. I'm looking at the 23 chances that are made by Liverpool, and I'm thinking I can make a name. I can be a legend there. We stunk today, but 3 points later. I'm flying high here. Don't get me wrong. It's awful. Beggars can't be choosers when you're clinging on to fourth. But I'm looking up at Leicester now, thinking we'll have you.
Yeah, and Paul, I suppose, I know we're happy with the 3 points. We're not happy with a lot of the performances out there. But Peter is right. Performance is probably secondary at the moment. We're not going to get a good performance at the moment. I think that ship has sailed for this season, and it is about getting the 3 points on the board. But what can we say about it?
I mean, the reason why I'm pissed off, and the reason why I say I'm pissed off, obviously I'm happy we won. Don't get me wrong, like I'm not that bad. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not that bad a troll. But the thing is, right? I feel like I've been watching the same game like since the turn of the year, and if honestly, I was actually sending this out to a lot of my friends. It's like this is what if you could sum up what watching Liverpool in 2021 is like in a meme. It's Sideshow Bob stepping on a rake on a loop. Basically, it's just absolutely the same thing over and over again, and you could see it coming. You could see it in the first half. It was like shot after shot after shot, and I'm thinking we're playing decent here. And then the first thing, like the first real attack that Aston Villa have, I'm like, yeah, we're going to concede. And you could just see it coming. It was just like, it was like any of the other games that we've watched. And fair enough, today we've dug ourselves out and we've done it, but we've done it despite ourselves. And that's the thing that annoys me the most, is that it's not because Villa played well. It's not because any of the teams that came to Anfield and have beaten us the last 6 games have played well at all on any level. We're doing this to ourselves, and that's the thing that really annoys me more than anything. When it's self-inflicted, it gets me. It really, really annoys me.
That's a confidence thing, though. That's a confidence thing, Paul. That's a confidence thing. But you're right. But that is a confidence thing. We don't have it.
We'll come on to that now. But lads, I'm going to go back to the beginning, right? So the team news came out. What did you make of it, Peter? I'll start with you. Were you happy with the lineup? Did you expect it to be different?
No, you're thinking about Real Madrid. I mean, you're 3-1 down, and obviously with Liverpool, that doesn't mean anything. I'm looking at Milner. I was a little bit disappointed. I didn't know about the muscle tear, or the muscle problem to the young lad. So I'm kind of looking at Milner, going, okay, we're going to try and match them. We're going to try and because I thought the first 20 minutes in the other game, they more or less kicked us off the park. Forget about what they done to us in behind, the fullbacks. They really bullied us. John McGinn bullied us in the first game. And I thought, okay, Milner in there might put some manners on people. We all knew that Sadio Mane was going to be dropped or rested. Yeah, he probably needs the rest. He looks like a player that's trying too hard. Either way, Jota needed the start. I thought Jota was lively today. So there weren't any surprise. He was never going to change the back four. It's about getting the same 4 players on the park, 3 or 4 games in a row now until the rest of the season. So he was never going to change that. Midfield, we were always going to lack a bit with those 3 of creativity, albeit though there should have been more energy in there, and I was disappointed in that. and the front three is the front three when you're sticking with Firmino. So no huge surprises other than Jones for me, because I didn't know he had taken a knock. No huge surprise. I knew Milner would get the knock. A lot of people moan, when Milner gets the knock, but people forget that experience counts in these games. And James Milner is probably the fittest player we have. I don't care what anybody says, and he's the most experienced player. So no surprises that he starts.
What about you, Paul? Were you happy with the lineup, or do you think anything may have been different, or was it needs most at this stage?
No, I think it was absolutely the right kind of lineup. And then, you see the article that was in The Athletic just before the game, like it got sent out just before the game, talking about how Mane scored 3 goals in 20-odd league games. It's like that decision has been coming for a long time. And, Jota's got to start because he's just the form guy. And, to be honest with you, him and Bobby and Mo did look good. I've got to say, I thought Bobby in particular played fantastic today. It's the best I've seen him for a long time. And, I've got less problems with Milner because I think he does the dirty stuff incredibly well. And I think he gets the work rate in there. And in the absence of Henderson, he's the voice of really driving this team forward. Which, when we don't have that on the pitch, we're just done. We just don't have that kind of leadership. So in the absence of Virgil, in the absence of Hendo, you need Milner in there. You need Milner in there. So I had no problems with the lineup at all.
Yeah, I can sort of understand the Milner inclusion. Wijnaldum has been the captain in games, and I think he doesn't have that leadership, that same leadership. He hasn't been performing too well either, and maybe the Milner, they did need that voice, they did need that sort of presence in there. So I was maybe a bit shocked that it was Wijnaldum that got in. Do you know what I mean, myself? But other than that, I think it was as expected. That one midfield thing, maybe the only issue on it, but. We started off, the game kicks off, and Pete, I'll come back to you. I mean, we sort of dominate possession in the game. We looked lively enough. Villa didn't look up to too much. What did you make of the start?
It's the usual from Liverpool, dominating possession and a little bit. Sorry about that. A little bit toothless, to be honest with you. You're waiting for.
Paul,
sorry, domestic bliss. No, you're looking for that little bit of cutting edge, and it's not going to come. And you're looking at it thinking, and it's exactly as Paul said earlier on. The first chance they get, we're going to pay for this. It's just one of those, and I think there's that little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy in about they go. And I thought, to be honest with you, let's not even talk. I won't dignify VAR by talking about it, but when it comes to the final little bits, you can see it's almost. I honestly think that it weighs on our minds. Obviously, the fact that we've scored 1 goal at Anfield since the turn of the year, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. That's weighing on our minds a hell of a lot. So, yeah, we're just, it's for me, it's just a hugely confident thing. But the one thing I'll always point to is that we're still doing the right things. We're still good in possession. We're still holding on. We're not going, we're not one of those sides that's got all of a sudden going to flip to doing the nonsense things and trying to play percentage ball, still trying to do the right thing. That's why I just think we're crying out for the goal scorer. Sometimes my main criticism of Liverpool is sometimes we look for the perfect player when we're on the hunt. It's almost like a star search. Oh, he has to be a great person. He has to be this. He has to be the best Christian or the best Muslim in the world. No, sometimes they just have to be the best bloody most ruthless centre forward. We just need to be a little bit ruthless. It's like some of the centre forwards we come up against, like Ollie Watkins wouldn't get arrested in a lineup, but he scored 4 goals against Liverpool this year. Will he get into an England squad? Yeah, maybe. Will he make a name for himself? Who knows? Sometimes you just need that player. It doesn't have to be the best player in the world. It just needs to be the fella that does that job, and we're missing that dirty finisher of chances, to be honest.
Yeah, Paul, I'll come to you. I'll just give you the first half stats right before we sort of get on to how the game pans out. And, Pete touched on creating chances. Liverpool had 12 shots in the first half, 66% possession, 12 shots, 3 on target, right? Aston Villa had 4 shots, 4 on target. and we're going in 1-0 down at half time. So the goal comes, nothing much is happening, is this, right? And there's a few chances. Jota should score a header. There's a few sort of half chance. Oh, sorry, Salah should score, actually. I'm forgetting all about that one. Let's start on that one. It's a chance. We're doing well. Bobby is looking lively in the game. Jota in and out. I thought he was decent enough. The big chance falls to Salah. Now, what do you think is happening? It's sloppy from Villa for a start, but what do you think about the chance that dropped into Salah? Are you expecting him to score there, or was it a difficult chance that Carragher in commentary, I don't know if he's watching Sky, Jamie Carragher in commentary tried to give the keeper a lot of credit? What did you make of it?
No, I think he was right to give the keeper a lot of credit because he did about as good as he could do, Martinez. And for me, I actually think he's the best keeper in the league this season by a mile. I think he's phenomenal keeper, considering the amount of money they paid for him as well. But, on top of that, what he did was make himself very, very big, and he put Mo in two minds, because you could see as the situation was coming to a head, you could see Mo was thinking about, do I drag it past him? Do I open myself out and drag it past him and go round him and then slot it, easy chance? Or do I pounce a little quicker and dink it over him? And he went for the dink, and he actually caught it. Like, when they say, I hate it when people say this, but he caught it too good. Like, he almost caught it too full, and that's what kind of dragged it over. Yeah. So Martinez absolutely did his job in that regard. So I've got no problem with Mo missing chances like that, even though he should put them away. Obviously some of the other ones were a little bit more sort of 50-50, shall we say. I've got to say, just on Jota for a second as well, I kind of agree with you. He was a bit in and out of the game, but he was subject to some daft refereeing decisions like in the game, and that's what put him on the fringes a little bit. But I'm sure we're going to come to refereeing and VAR in a bit.
We will very shortly. But Pete, you agree with Paul there that it was good goalkeeping by Martinez, and maybe Salah does hit it too on the full. He's not getting that sort of the slice enough to sort of spin the ball in.
Paul makes a superb point actually about Martinez in general being probably the top keeper in the league at the moment. I mean, Arsenal be gutted with that decision. Good enough for them. That's what they do. They throw away good players. But for me, I think Salah, again, he's in his head. He's thinking, and Martinez has forced him into that situation, So
it's an imposing goalkeeper. They'll always do that, won't he? And I echo the sentiment there to Paul as well. I think he's an excellent keeper. I think it's one of the best signings of the season. Not one of the most sort of high profile, spectacular, but an excellent signing. He's really done Villa a solid there. He was one clean sheet away from Brad Friedel's clean sheet record in the season, which, in his first year there, this says a lot about him. But we missed that one. But, the chances are sort of, half chances are coming and going as the game goes on. But then we get caught out, lads. The usual Liverpool dominate possession. They're having scrappy little half chances, and then the opposition get an opportunity and they punish us. Paul, I'm going to stay with you on this. What do you make of the goal? Who do you apportion blame to? Is there blame to be apportioned to anybody? What do you make of it? Talk me through it.
I mean, excuse the language, but it's the same old shite in it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you could see it coming. You were mentioning about like the amount of shots that we had compared to Villa, and it's like, yeah, of course they're going to have 4 shots on target, and all of them are going to be, either in and around or at the keeper. But they were exposing this little channel like on the inside of like our left hand side in the first half, and then playing these like diagonal balls in, and it really there was 2 or 3 chances in that regard, and then Watkins gets into that position and then drills it straight at Allison. And I've got to say about Allison, he's gone from looking like Ron Jeremy to looking like Clark Kent, and then playing like Supergram. Like, honestly, like just atrocious, like for supposedly not only one of the best keepers in the world, like the best keeper in the world on form in the last 2 or 3 years. His form has alarmingly dropped off. And, I think it's something that we're going to have to address in the summer, because I think the problem is at the moment is that, don't get me wrong, we all love, we love Kevin Kelleher, and we think he's got loads of potential, but he's no competition for Allison at the moment. And I think we might need to address that in the summer and maybe bring in a proper number 2 keeper, put Kelleher out on loan and give Allison some real competition, give them something to really, really think about and help him to up his game, because we've seen this too many times with Liverpool keepers in the past, even the likes of Reina. Like, keepers seem to come to Liverpool and just alarmingly drop off. So, it's something that we're going to have to look at, because I know like John Achterberg used to get a lot of stick for that in the past. Do you know what I mean? Because, what did he do? Play for Tranmere, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But, it's a trend that keeps happening. I mean, obviously, you can talk about Karius and Mignolet all day, but, a world-class keeper like Allison has this season just very, very slowly but surely dropped off. And obviously, he's had his share of injury problems as well. So, it's hard to know where to go with that, really.
Yeah, Pete, I mean, on the Allison point, he's a comment there by Kieran B. Allison has had a very hard year to be grand next year. And look, he lost his father in tragic circumstances recently, and we can't sort of tell what's going on in his head. His form wasn't great before that, if I'm being totally honest, but that might have been a result of the team, maybe, rather than Allison. But he's really going through the ringer at the moment. He was at fault the other night against Madrid for the third goal. People were trying to put the blame on to Phillips for that. And I've seen people trying to put the blame on to Kabak today for the Aston Villa goal. But, it's a shot that's straight down the middle of him and it's going in. What do you make of it?
Well, on Allison, I think, to be honest with you, he gets, I don't doubt his quality. Form is temporary, class is permanent. He's had a ridiculous amount of injuries. So as well as all this COVID nonsense and the stop-start, the rhythm, everyone's rhythm being completely thrown, his personal and physical rhythm is completely thrown. So I wouldn't expect, to be honest, I just want to get this season over with. Get everybody in pre-season, get everyone's rhythm back on track. I think goalkeepers suffer, centre-half suffer, a lot of players in key positions for us suffer. Their rhythm is completely gone, So for me, it's a case of just let's get everybody in and start again.
Yeah, indeed. It's a good point. But before we move on to the second half, actually, I want to go back and touch on something. Ramez put a super chat in. Thanks very much, Ramez. Lads, I'm a bit worried for Mane. His form is atrocious. Also, if Kane is available, would you take him? Cheers for all the boss content. Paul, I'll come to you first. Mane's form, atrocious. What do you make of it?
Yeah, as I said before, there was that Athletic article. It's like 3 league goals in 20 odd games. Very, very unlike him. I mean, obviously they were bigging up Mane's record against Villa on Sky before, and to be honest with you, when he came on, he just looked like he was running around like a headless chicken, and you could tell things were that desperate because Mane and Salah were actually passing to each other at one stage, so there was that to contend with as well. But ultimately he looks like a player, like many of them, like Peter makes great points about Allison, about most of the squad. When you go back to all the problems we've had with COVID and what it's like living in that bubble, the fact that after the end of the season, we only got, 2 weeks off. We didn't really have a pre-season. Like, this still feels like last season to me, even now. Like, it hasn't even really felt like it stopped. So, we're really, really suffering for that. And I think Mane is chief among that. So he needs rest. He needs a bit of a change of scene. I think, obviously he'll play against Madrid in midweek, but I can see him being cycled and being rotated a little bit, especially with how good the front three looked today without him. And that's not to say it was because he was out the team. Yeah. It was just Jota and Bobby particularly seems to be on an upward curve at the moment. So, I think it's necessary for him because he's been going at it hard for years. When you think about AFCON, you think about everything else that he's been through. It's tough. So he definitely wears the look of a player who needs a bit of freshness, and you only get that through rest and recovery. Indeed.
And Harry Kane, would you take him or would you not take him?
No, because I just don't like the guy. I think he's a cheating little shit, to be honest with you. And he doesn't
not in a good way.
No, exactly. And obviously I've been on the Friday forecast a couple of times, and I've kind of almost defended what he's been doing with like backing into people and stuff like that, but he's been getting more and more blatant about it. And, you know, I think, you know, he's one of those players that like Mourinho's got into him and he's brought the worst out in him. And like, I don't think he actually fits our style of play a lot.
But you can't knock his numbers. His numbers are phenomenal. You know,
you can't knock his numbers, but you know what the number will be, Pete? You'll be talking record transfer number, and that's the
you're talking 200 million for someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it meant losing Salah or even Mane, I know Mane is thinking the place out. I would say no, and that's hand on heart.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him either, to be honest, Ramez. I think I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of his style of play. I don't like Harry Kane. Kieran Doyle says there he's a snide footballer. He is a snide footballer. I like snide footballers, but there's something about Harry Kane that I don't like, and I wouldn't like him at Liverpool. I think he's a very selfish player. I know Salah is selfish, but I think Harry Kane, there's something, you know, Salah is selfish on the pitch, and Harry Kane seems like a selfish person, and that probably doesn't make sense, but it's just something about him that I don't like. For the numbers you're talking for Harry Kane, dealing with Daniel Levy as well, no, he'd be way down on the list for me. And Mane, I think Pete said it there, form is temporary, class is permanent. And
I'll take Son. I think we could be
guilty of ruining.
I'll take Son.
You know,
I don't know why people don't say everyone is all about Kane. Don't get me wrong, Kane's a fantastic taker of chances, but that Son, if Son was white in English, I always say it, everybody would be raving about. They'd be saying, where is he going? Madrid, Barcelona, or Liverpool or Milan. I honestly think I cannot wrap my head around why the guy is not rated as one of the top 5 or 6 forwards.
Ironically, the two I would take when you talk about South Korean players, Son is absolutely one of them. The other one actually is the one I would have taken from RB Salzburg, because I'll be honest with you, at the time, Hwang, I was raving. I thought he played better than Minamino in those games. Quite frankly, I know everyone was raving about, and he did play well, Minamino, don't get me wrong, but if you look at like how good Hwang looked when he played against us for Salzburg, it's like, why wouldn't you take this kid? Look at him, he's got everything, do you know what I mean? So I'd rather just take a player like Hwang than someone like Harry Kane. And again, they're not going to sell to a rival, record money, and like I think we just need to be a little bit more realistic. Like the LeBron deal and the Billy Bean thing, all that's going to do is steady the ship. Like, that's not rolling out the red carpet for someone. Like, I mean, I was convinced the other week we were going to go for Mbappe, but I've put that out of my mind now. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest.
We've dampened that fire, have we?
Why not? Why not? Why not?
Show for the stars.
I know. Well, I mean, let me tell you something, and I don't want to rant about it. Kylian Mbappe, a player like that is an economy in itself. It's not like you think, okay, what happens next? You make this huge investment, and all of a sudden, the money that flows in, and I'm glad LeBron James is involved in this, because basketball is a little bit different. Like baseball, a little bit different to football. You buy these players, you don't just buy their ability, you buy the economy that comes with them. All of a sudden, they're like an island. It's like buying a fun resort. You buy it, and all of a sudden, thousands of people come to touch it. Not just see it play and do its, score its 100 points a quarter every season. It's people come to touch it and be around it. That's why I think we are definitely in the Kylian Mbappe business, because it's an economy. It's a very Liverpool transfer. You give your 100, because it's going to be 120 million, not 200 million, because at the end of the day, the guy himself is going to have a say. He wants to go somewhere. You give your 120 million, and then within 6 months, you've doubled your money. I don't understand why people are tripping, and they're completely tripping over the think about the money it's going to make you.
Yeah, Real Madrid will be the front
runner. An economy. This kid is an economy.
But it's for those reasons that Real will be going from as well, because they need to boost their sort of reputation.
If he wants to go to a museum club where you can go and look at the 13 trophies, 9 of which they stole during the Franco era or whatever. I think maybe 6 that they stole during the Franco. If he wants to go and make an absolute legend out of himself on the field of play, which it smells to me like he wants to come and compete. Liverpool is the place. Even Manchester City, go to Manchester City and make himself 500-600 grand a week, fine. But what are you going to do? For me, if I'm looking at even games like today where Liverpool are consistently making 20 and 30 occasions in the final, I'm thinking, I can make a difference there. And by the way, they win trophies already, but I'm going to make sure that they win consistent trophies. For me, it's a no-brainer. If I'm in his camp, I'm saying, you're going to be wearing red next year.
I could present many counter arguments, but I'm actually conscious of time.
And we have a match to talk about.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I'm going to stay with you. Thanks for the super chat, Ramez. It looks like Chelsea 2-0 up already as well, lads. So maybe our stay in the top 4 for today will be short-lived. But Paul, before half-time, in injury time in the first half, we think we get an equaliser. Jota is adjudged as offside. Firmino sticks it in, thinks he has a goal to his name. What do you make of it?
I mean, what else can we say? I mean, the honest answer is, like, the reason why I'm so annoyed at the end of this game is because it's like the entire everything that happened in this game is everything that's been annoying me this season in one game. And the VAR thing is absolutely that. And, you know, to be honest, I don't really think there's any mileage in going through the decision, because it is the decision. You know, it's the hair on the end of, like, Jota's, like, little toe that's offside, which in and of itself is a ridiculous concept. As I've kept saying ad nauseum this season, VAR is not applied like this in other leagues. Yeah. It's not applied like this in the Champions League. It's only England, where it's like the Premier League insists that we're going to do it our way because we're the best league in the world. And it's this Premier League exceptionalism. And again, it brings me on to my other favourite pet topic, which I'll bring up again, which is referees. The referees in this country are employed by the PGMOL. The PGMOL is actually a wholly owned company owned by the Premier League. So basically, it's the only one of the major leagues where the referees and the officials work for the league and not for the FA. So there is a very clear and blatant conflict of interest in all of this straight away. And you've only got to read David Conn's work in The Guardian about all of this, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of people have written about that if you're interested in looking into it. You look at Jeff Winter's book, what he had to say about it, how the fact that referees are not contractually obliged, they're contractually obliged not to talk about their decisions after games. And quite frankly, I think things like this are done deliberately in order to try and, like, jack up the product, to make it more dramatic, to try and get, you know, a sense of manufactured controversy about the game. The only problem is that these people have forgotten that, like, we're not talking about professional wrestling, you know, where it's a predetermined outcome and people are hitting each other with steel chairs to make things look interesting. It's football. Like, we need to have a really proper debate about the use of VAR in this country, and we need to have it fast. And whether the Wenger rule comes in about offside, but the way that it's implemented in general is a disgrace and is putting people off the game. And I'll be honest with you, it's putting me off the game as well.
It's killing the game. It's killing the game. And let's be honest, we've won today, right? We've got away with it. I say we've got away with it. We've got the 3 points. So I feel, you know, if you lose and you rant about it, it's you've lost and you're ranting about it. But they're measuring offside by the sleeve, you know, and to me, that's just totally wrong. You know what I mean? A player, it was a Patrick Bamford earlier in the season, is pointing where he wants the ball played and is adjudged offside because of his sleeve. You know, it's an absolute farce. But it's the same shit all the time. We go in at half time, we're on the receiving end of that. Pete, you want to have a go at the VAR, or do you?
For me, listen, I think Paul is touching on something that I think is down the right alley, talking about predetermined outcomes. We all know that there's huge amounts of money on gambling, and it's getting more minuscule in terms of what people are gambling on. Are you telling me that an independent organization, is not lucratively involved? I know it's tinfoil hat time, but come on.
Crazy.
I mean, it seems to me, especially against the so-called big clubs like ourselves, when something happens, when they score, it takes a good 5 minutes to decide whether it's a goal. If there's a goal against them, it's almost where's the check? Because there's bigger money riding on that. Do you know what I mean? For me, I think it's all linked to these gambling companies.
If it takes 5 minutes to do a check, and it takes several checks within a check, that probably shouldn't be a check. You know what I mean?
Like, for me, I remember a few years ago, people talking about the benefit of doubt. I mean,
to the attackers.
I wouldn't want to be a centre forward now trying to make a living, to be quite honest with you. I wouldn't
celebrating a goal.
What happened to clear and obvious? Like, is that
gone.
clear and obvious? Like, no, it's not. It's literally deciding by pixels. And there's actually, like, if you want to get into even the vagaries of the technology, it's even been proven that the frame rates that they use for the video when they draw the lines are actually not accurate. So it's when like the whole thing is a bullshit. Basically, the whole thing. And again, we're the only league where we show the lines and we look at, like, watch this guy in a car park outside Stansted Airport draw a line with a protractor on a computer screen. It's an absolute nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense, and it's ruining the English game in order to satisfy people.
Paul, there was an interview with one of the top referees who just packed it in over the last few weeks, and he openly said that they were instructed by the organisation PGMO to issue a certain amount of corner kicks, a certain amount of penalties, a certain amount of free kicks. And then all of a sudden, nobody picked up on that. So it obviously runs deeper within the game. Like I said to you, for me, again, we talk about it's an economy when it comes to players. Gambling is an economy. You know, everybody wants to make money from the game. You're talking about slaughtering a huge cash cow for a number of organizations. That's why all of a sudden these conversations get hushed up, silenced, or just disappeared. You know, it's an economy. You know, it's that simple.
And it's so easy to fix. It's so easy to fix. Like, if you watch, like, I mean, I'm sure there's not many people who watch the A League. I mean, I'm not a great watcher of it myself. But if you watch the Australian League, they've actually gone for this hybrid approach between rugby and football, where the refs are actually mic'd up and they actually explain their decisions in the moment of them actually making it. And, you know, I've been a big fan of American sports and having been to NFL games, like, which is very difficult to see what's going on the pitch at that moment. You know, when you've got a referee who is hooked up to the main PA who can go, right, this is happening. This is why it's happening. We're making this decision. We're justifying it this way. That's it. Just gets cleared up so quickly. But it's the one thing that they'll never do.
Yeah, no accountability. But into the second half we go, lads. Into the second half we go. And it's more of the same. Liverpool are on top. They're dominating possession. They're looking the better team. Villa don't seem interested. And we do then get the equaliser. Peter, I'll come back to you. It's Salah gets it. He gets it on the 57th minute. It's good work by Robertson. What did you make of the goal?
To be honest with you, you know, I find with Mo Salah that, you know, his stats have been phenomenal, you know, and you find yourself when he does eventually take a chance and slot one away, you're kind of saying to yourself, why couldn't you just concentrate like that? Why couldn't you just be that clinical earlier on in the game? Yeah, he's taken it very, very well. To be honest with you, I thought Robertson as well has been very lately, because he went through his Alexander-Arnold patch a little bit earlier in the season. I was more chuffed with his contribution, to be honest, than anything else. But we expect from Salah, you know, so it's kind of difficult to praise him. But again, it's, you know, for me, he does what Salah does. You just want it to be a little more. I find myself feeling like a bit of a fraud for having a go at a man like Mohamed Salah with the number that he's shown out. I feel terrible for doing it. I have no right. None of us have any right to criticise this guy. If you look at on paper, he's the only consistent performer we have. So it feels wrong. Yeah, he slotted away, but you find yourself saying, listen, Mo, you're the one that we're relying on. So when the simple chances come along, stick those away too. You know, then he goes and does something a little more complicated and sticks it away. So
look, it is what it is. Paul, I'll come to you actually. Peter makes a good point about, you know, Salah, the numbers, the performances. Salah's numbers, I think there is a big divide between his numbers and his performances, because you know, do we judge him unfairly? Because if Salah was a centre forward, and look, we're all of an age where you remember the old number 9 forwards who probably didn't do a lot in the game, but they got the goals, right? They plundered the goals. If Mo Salah was playing centrally and wasn't impacting the game as much, but was getting these numbers, you wouldn't really have a question about it. The fact that Salah is a wide player, and it's the sort of Messi and Ronaldo sort of syndrome nearly, that you play a wide and you get all these goals. Do we expect too much from Salah? you know, is that the numbers, should the numbers just be enough, or should we be expecting more from a performance level from Salah?
Well, I think it actually all goes back to his very first season when he absolutely, to use a golf term, shot the lights out. I mean, what was it in the end? 47 goals that season, 42.
Yeah, 44, I think,
44.
47 is the Ian Rush record, I think.
That's right, yeah. So he split the difference at only 44. And then what happened in his second season, this frustration started to rise in the fan base because he wasn't doing the exact same thing. There was an expectation that everything he touched would turn to gold. He was going to win the Puskas Award every year, and he was going to be that Messi level player. And that level is, quite frankly, unsustainable. And I think he gets a very unfair rep based on a rod that he unconsciously or, you know, unintentionally made for his own back off the back of that first season performance. And when you look at the way he plays, and it might seem like a bit of a weird comparison, I've always compared him to Luis Garcia, because I find him to be tremendously frustrating and exhilarating in equal measure, because he's the type of player that will, like what we were saying with the Martinez chance, the chance with the one-on-one with Martinez, like a player, like a Messi level player just sorts that, no problem at all. So we get frustrated when he doesn't score chances like that, but then he'll turn up to use a this season like situation. He'll come, you know, he'll cut inside and he'll curl one in out for 35 yards out, like he did against Crystal Palace, and it looks like nothing because that's what we expect from him. And you know, I do think he's a victim of altogether too high expectations. And when you look at, as I say, when you look at the numbers don't lie. This guy's a world-class player. I think another final point I'd like to make on this is that he's also a victim of the deterioration in performances of the players around him. So what happened that season when he was scoring the 44? He had other players around him, and even last season in the title-winning season, he had other players around him all chipping in, contributing, doing what they needed to do, and goals were coming from all over the pitch. Now that's not drying up. Everyone's looking at Mo the way we used to look at Steven Gerrard and go on then, dig us out the shit. And it doesn't always happen because he's just not that type of player. He's streaky. He runs hot and cold. He won't, like, I know because I've had him in my fantasy team all season. There's 3 game weeks where he's just blanked and I'm like, oh, you can get out my team. I take him out my team and he scores 12 points. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just that type of player. So we've just got to accept him for what he is, which is a world-class player who is currently top scorer in the league. And let's be honest, where would we be without him?
He's on 27 goals in all comps this season, which is, you know, he got 44 in his 4th season. I'm looking at his stats here. The 2nd season, he got 27, but in 10 more games than what he's got this 27. And last season, he got 23 in 48 games. I mean, he's nothing if not consistent with numbers. And, you know, it's crazy. And like I said, I think he's held, Paul touched on it there, his 4th season was just... You know, to better that, you're talking ridiculous stats, and you know, maybe you have to be of the Messi, Ronaldo level where you are dominating games and you're, you know, teams and defenders are afraid of you, and you're just plundering the goals. Salah's had to work extra hard, I suppose, to get his goals. But, you know, you can't argue with the numbers at the end of the day. And he gets another one today and sort of puts us back in the game. And all the commentary around it is, oh, Liverpool will go and get the winner. Liverpool will go and get the winner. The game is going on. And, you know, we're running out of time here, lads. And another player who I personally thought was the worst player on the pitch today, and Pete, will come to you. The worst player, a player who I think has been suffering and has let the pressure really get to him after the stinker he had in Madrid. Trent Alexander-Arnold. And we forget that. We forget what he's done so far in his career, don't we? At 21 years of age or 22, whatever he is.
Exactly. When we're playing well, this young fella is launching Hollywood balls on the volley across pitches against Premier League class teams, and it looks great. When it's not going so well, he's still trying to launch superb crossfield balls to people to try and unlock things, and it can look desperate. It's a little bit like what Paul says when other fellas aren't exactly on their game. It all comes back to the fact that we've got a new centre-back partnership there. So the two lads haven't got the freedom and confidence to get forward and do those things. So very often, and particularly in today's game, he's launching balls, and it looks like he's launching balls to nobody, you know. And it's not that he's launching balls. He's doing, his muscle memory is kicking in. He's thinking, that's where Robbo should be. That's where Sadio Mane should be. That's where the player should be. But unfortunately, the centre-backs we have aren't bringing us out of the park and out of the back of the park enough to make sure that fellas are around where I need them to be, and it looks a little bit desperate, to be quite honest with you. And it's amazing. We didn't want to mention Virgil van Dijk, but you can't, and you have to. Virgil van Dijk gives you that. As the quickest and best centre back in the world, the confidence to say, all right, lads, we're going to be 40 and 50 yards. We're gonna sit in the halfway line, and we're just gonna be, you're Robbo on that side. When Trent has the ball on the right hand side, you're just gonna be an extra attacker. You're gonna be unmarkable. And I think Trent, bless him, is still launching those Hollywood passes in the hope that something is going to work out. And he's suffering and it's making him look like a worse player. A lot of people, there was a lot made of this week of Trent being left out of the England squad. Don't get me wrong, before anybody shoots me in the comments, I understand why Gareth Southgate left Trent out, because Gareth Southgate doesn't have the foresight and the tactical flexibility to bring Trent into the squad and do something different with him. If Gareth Southgate is limited by the fact that he has two atrocious centre-backs to choose from in John Stones and Harry Maguire that don't have the ability to play that high line effectively. So in essence, he needs a Kieran Trippier, or he needs a Kyle Walker who's more defensively minded, particularly Trippier, to cover for their desperate ability, to be honest. So Trent, if you're that manager, Gareth, or a manager like that, you're thinking, I don't know, I can't use Trent. Another manager might think, I'm gonna use Trent as a midfield player. Because is he better than the midfield players I'm going to pick? Is he better than, well, probably, is he better than Calvin Phillips? Is he better than some of the lads I'm thinking about bringing in? Of course he is. But if Gareth Southgate doesn't have the tactical flexibility to think of Trent as anything other than a classic number two, that's the real problem. I'm sure Trent Alexander is sitting down with Jurgen Klopp thinking, this is not a slight on my ability. It's a slight on the lack of the English manager's ability to see beyond the number, to be quite honest. I think Trent is suffering. Yeah, and you know, when you're perceived as being a defensive liability, which is complete rubbish, to be honest with you, he's never been a defender in the square peg, square hole kind of mentality. He's an attacking fullback. He's that extra option. But the problem is when things aren't going well, you're relying on other people to think a little bit outside the box. Trent is still the same Trent. We're suffering, you know, and he's suffering, unfortunately. But take nothing from his ability or potential. And he's 21. Crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, is there something, you know, that Pete says there? Is the problem with Trent that he doesn't have a position, really? Do you know what I mean? He has a role in Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool that maybe doesn't translate to a player or a manager, like Gareth Southgate, and a setup like England. And if you're being realistic about it, it gets thrown around all the time about, Liverpool, they're a system player, these a system, you know, none of these players would be good anywhere else. We get your backup because you're like, hold on, these are great players. But is it a case that Trent, he's not a right back? He's not a midfielder. You wouldn't say he's even a winger. Like, does he suffer from the fact that he's just a Trent and that's it?
No, because I think to think that way, like Peter's saying, Gareth Southgate hasn't got the intellect, quite frankly, or the foresight to understand what's going on. The full-back position is currently being completely revolutionised in world football at Liverpool Football Club by two players, Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. How do you be that without extreme innovation? How do you achieve impossible things without being an extreme innovator? And that is exactly what Trent Alexander-Arnold is. He's redefined the position of fullback in the modern game at the age of 22. That cannot be taken away from him. As Jamie Carragher quite rightly said, this kid is Kevin De Bruyne playing at right back. We have all seen him run games. My favorite game of his, and I get goosebumps every time I think of it, is Boxing Day against Leicester, and he ran the game. Everything went through him. He ran the game. He absolutely tore Leicester apart single-handed. And you don't, I mean, and again, like we were saying with Mo, it's like the level of performance that kid has put in over 3 seasons is unsustainable for a 22-year-old. It's just, let's get it in context here. There are 22-year-old kids who are out on loan at the moment, wondering whether or not they've got a career. This kid is the best right back in the world, and he's not even a right back. Like, let's get it into the proper context here. The fact of the matter is that he can play the way he can play because he's got world-class players around him. He doesn't quite have that at the moment. I do think his performance level can improve. Players naturally go through dips in form. Like, it would have been a miracle today if they kept the ball in play. Do you know what I mean? There was about 10 passes that went out for throw-ins, and I'm not even talking about the Hollywood balls. I'm talking percentage balls. Yeah. But what counts is that he pulled it out the bag when he needed it the most and when we needed it the most, and that's the most important thing. And the thing to sort of close on that is, I think he's been like where Mo's made a rod for his own back with his own world class performances. I think it's slightly similar with Trent, but I think the press have made a rod for his back, and I think it's really, really deeply unfair. And the fact that this kid, as I say, at 22 years of age, is having an unnatural amount of pressure heaped on him is a damning indictment of the culture of the English game, and one of the main reasons why I, quite frankly, can't stand the English national team, and I'm just completely disinterested.
Paul, and I don't hate Gareth Southgate. I think a lot of people over there, you should pity him. To be honest, Gareth Southgate just doesn't have the ability. He doesn't have the understanding of football to understand that this fella can play 5-6 positions. I could put this fella in the middle of my park, and he'd be the best player on the pitch. I could play him in front of a back four and ask him to dictate like a pendulum, and he'd probably be the best player on the park. I could play him wide in the midfield in a 4-4-2, and he'd be like David Beckham reborn. This is a man that just doesn't understand beyond what his plan is and doesn't have the ability. That's why England get caught out. England don't get caught out because they're unlucky. They get caught out in the last 8 of major tournaments because they don't have the ability to think beyond what the plan is. The plan is to be rigid and to be difficult to break down and to have a fella that will take chances when they come our way. They just don't have the ability to say, okay, notice with Italy, for example, when they won tournaments, they'd always have 1 or 2 jokers like Pirlo, where you'd go, how the fuck do you go about stopping him doing what he does? You don't have anybody in a white jersey for England where you'd worry like that. And yet you have 3 or 4 players like Jack Grealish, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who you'd kind of think a good manager would put him in a position or 2 positions where you think, okay, it's up to you to try and stop him. You need to focus your team on trying to stop what these guys are going to do. And that's where the English kind of fail to be good. So I don't hate Gareth Southgate. He's to be pitied.
Yeah. So I've got 2 very quick points on that. Number 1, Gareth Southgate is like any other manager. He's got his favourites. And of course, he's got his favourites at betting companies, which is why he loves Kieran Trippier so much. So we won't go there. Ooh. But secondly, right, do we remember the days in the dim and distant past when Gareth Bale was a fullback? Do we remember those days?
I was a long time ago. I was at about 10 of those games. And, Spurs didn't win one of them. This was towards the end of the Wande Ramos, Harry Redknapp era. I was actually living in London. I was doing my badges at the time, and the company I worked for used to bring us to Spurs. So I seen him play with his big ears and his short hair, and he just looked like, what are you playing him left back for? There's so much. He was so quick, but they didn't win a game for 30 games or something like that with him playing left back.
That's right, yeah.
And that's where Trent is. I think he's in that transitional mode. I mean, you could play him further up the pitch.
But fullback then and fullback now, even though that's only 10, 11 years ago, is a different proposition.
Different.
Especially the way we play.
Completely different.
I mean, I would almost say, you'd almost say that Liverpool have a back 3 when Virgil van Dijk is fit, when Gomez and when Fabinho's sitting in front of him. Those are your 3 defenders when you don't have the ball. And when you do have the ball, all of a sudden everyone else is attacking, and they're just making sure that when it breaks down, everyone is doing what they're supposed to do.
Well, like you said, Peter, we're playing checkers and he's playing 3D chess. Basically, that's what he's about.
That's it. But look, Trent steps up, lads, and I'm hoping that it's a turning point for him, especially with Madrid on the horizon. We need him back in some semblance of form. But he gets us out of it today. Shitty performance or not, he gets us out of it. So before we finish up, lads, I want his man of the match. Peter, who was your man of the match today?
Because he's been terrible, I'm going to give it to Firmino. I think his movement in the first half was absolutely outstanding. He was very lively. He misses the goal. I think he's unlucky VAR's done him out of a goal. I'm going to give it to Firmino.
Yeah. Paul?
Firmino all day. I'd give him man of the match just off how he took that ball on the halfway line, just out the sky, and just filth.
Yeah. No, lads, I'd agree. I have to say, I thought Firmino was very lively. I was good. The goal was taken away from him, but we got there in the end. So I just want to thank you for coming on and having a little chat about that. I was panicking that I was coming on to do another post-game show where we didn't get a win because I had to do Real Madrid the other night, lads, and I'm not going to lie. It was tough. It was heartbreaking. And I'm just happy that I'm on and talking about 3 points for the Reds. So look, it's a long way to go still in the season. I know we're running out of games, but the top four, it's looking more and more like it's there to be had. There's teams up there that we can catch. So, as we said at the start, the performances, it's the points on the board that count, and we got 3 today. So, look, Peter, thanks very much for joining me all the way from sunny Spain.
Always a pleasure.
And Paul, all the way from sunny, where are you?
Sunny Liverpool, mate. About 10 minutes away from Anfield.
There you go. So give the lads a shout out and tell them what delighted that they done well. I've been your host, Keith, and we'll be back again soon.
Take it easy.